As we have stated in previous reviews, the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise has quickly made its new home on the PlayStation Vita and more recently the PlayStation TV. Over the past couple years, 2 of the main series games have gotten remakes on the Vita, and they've also got 3 spin-off titles. If there's any franchise that is flourishing on Sony's handheld system right now, it is the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise. All of the games up to this point I have reviewed, and I have every intention of reviewing every upcoming game as well. Last year, I reviewed Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, as well as the spin-off title Producing Perfection. This year so far, I have reviewed Rebirth 2, as well as Hyperdevotion Noir. This trend will keep going as there is a new spin-off title that is about to release. As you know, all of the spin-off titles so far have been the developers testing out different genres of the series. The main series of Neptunia is a mix between action RPG and turn-based RPGs. Producing Perfection was an attempt at the idle simulation genre, and Hyperdevotion Noir was an attempt at the strategy RPG genre. Now with the new release almost upon us, here we have a review of a Neptunia game that goes into the action genre. Here is my official review of Hyperdimension Neptunia U, Action Unleashed. The story of Action Unleashed takes place in a non-canon alternate universe of game industry, where there is peace between the 4 CPUs from the original Neptunia game, as well as the 4 CPU candidates from Rebirth 2. In that peace, 2 journalists from game industry have arrived by the names of Famitsu and Dengekiko, who are parodies of the Japanese magazines Famitsu and Dengeki PlayStation. In an attempt to do more press, they get the CPUs and CPU candidates to go out and do quests so they can write articles on them. After the success of the first article, the 2 journalists join with the CPUs and the candidates on doing a follow-up article to do more coverage. At the same time, a strange, massive flux of quests starts to appear, as well as an alarmingly large number of new monsters spawning in the world. Together, all 10 of them go on a quest together to find the root cause of this increase, as well as to stop it in its tracks. The story of Action Unleashed isn't the most polished the series is known for. There isn't a huge dilemma with a world-threatening boss fight with R4 or someone else. The story doesn't have a whole lot of immense character development, but it does shine as far as the parodies and jokes are concerned. All of the parody and jokes that they show in the game are among the series' best parodies and jokes they've come up with so far. Neptunia U is a 3D action game with RPG elements thrown into the mix. As you play through each quest, you will be hacking and slashing your way through hordes of enemies and bosses for the ultimate goal of either collecting items or making a boss spawn that you need to defeat. While there are RPG elements, as I stated just before, it is more of an action game than an RPG. Now the game has 3 different game modes for you to play through, though only one of them is accessible from the beginning of the game. You have Story Mode, the Game Industry Arena, and Natural Tower. Story Mode is where you go through all of the story events and go through quests to go through the storyline to find the final boss. Once you beat Story Mode, you can unlock Game Industry Arena and Natural Tower. Game Industry Arena is a little bit different because it allows you to take part in tournaments where you can put all of the CPUs and other characters together and do one-on-one character battles. The way these perform is very similar to the tournaments shown in the Dragon Ball Z anime. Finally, the Natural Tower is a 50-stage labyrinth where you can go up through hordes of enemies, all leading up to the secret final boss of the game. Now, while you're playing through Story Mode, you will be going and viewing story scenes to see the plot progress, as well as doing quests, which will in turn unlock more story content to progress the story forward, and then go back to quests, and so on and so forth until you reach the end of the game. Since this is a more of a go on a mission, then go back to your base, go on another mission, go back to your base game, the world map isn't huge and explorable like it is in the Rebirth games. It is more of a menu of sorts, like it was in Hyperdevotion Noir. Now, when you're out on missions, you will be in a pair. You can take 1 or 2 characters with you, most of the time 2, but you'll only be controlling 1 at the same time. You can take Neptune and Noir on the same mission, and at any time you can just switch over to Noir if you want to use her for a while. Now, when you are on these missions, you're going to be fighting off hordes of enemies in various areas that are reminiscent of dungeons from the Rebirth games, with the ultimate goal of finding items or taking down certain enemies in boss fights. Now the combat itself will be very hack and slash like, kind of like the Dynasty Warriors games. You'll be able to use various attacks with your physical weapons to do combos. Now, the combos go through a little bit like Ragnarok Odyssey. You have a light attack command and a heavy attack command, and you can do these in different combinations to do different combos. For example, let's say you want to use the light attack twice and then go to a heavy attack. This would be completely different if you do 5 light attacks in a row and then a heavy attack. There are a lot of different combos you can go through, and each character feels a little bit different from the others. Now, as you attack, you can also gain EXE Force and SP. SP can be used to use special attacks like Neptune's Critical Edge or Uni's Brave Cannon, or you can use your EXE gauge to go into HDD mode for a while, as well as using an EXE Drive ultimate attack. Now, when you fight and defeat enemies, the RPG elements start to come into play. When you defeat an enemy, you gain experience points as well as medals. Experience points are used to level up, which increases your stats. You can level each character up to level 99. And the medals are used as rewards for getting equipment as well as stat boosts. Since there are no really shops in the game, the only way you can get equipment, accessories, or increase everyone's stats at the same time are to get enemy medals. Each enemy type has various rewards that no other enemy type can give you, so you'll want to fight as many of each enemy type as possible to get all of the rewards. Now, one last thing to note is the fan service that's built into the game. Anyone who's researched this game has no doubt seen all of the videos and clips of the costume tearing feature that's in the game. When you take so much damage, your costume will tear apart and it will reveal a lot of the girl's body. Now, it's not as much revealing as games like Senran Kagura, but it is a little bit revealing. Now, the good thing about this is that this is completely optional. Once you use each character on a specific number of quests, you will unlock variations of their uniform. You can equip variations that will not break at all, so if you don't want to see costume tearing at all, you can just equip them with the hardened variation of their costume, and it'll never break no matter how many times you get hit. While this doesn't take effect in the game industry arena, for every other part of the game, you won't have to see the costume tearing at all. Now, all in all, the main scenario of the game should take you about 10 to 12 hours to finish, as long as you balance out the use of all 10 characters. You will need to use specific character quests towards the end of the game, so you'll need to balance out all 10 characters at the same time if you don't want to have to go back and grind some quests to level someone up. Now, after this, as we said before, you unlock the arena and the tower, which will easily eat up at least 3 or 4 more hours. You also unlock several post-game quests in story mode, which let you go through character-specific missions with superpowered enemies that have a level requirement of 99. Even without this being a fully fledged RPG, there's plenty of content for a Neptunia fan to go through. Now, if there's one thing about the gameplay that is worth noting as a hindrance, it's the camera. Every once in a while when you're playing through the game, the camera will get to a point where it'll be hard to tell where you're going. Since there are so many mobs of enemies around and there is no lock-on feature, it's easy to lose track of your character, or having your character partially off-screen or just cluttered up in the mob of enemies that you can't really tell where your attacks are going. It's not that hard to avoid these situations by keeping a good distance and constantly manually moving the camera, but it is a little bit annoying if you're just enjoying the moment and the camera moves a little bit on you and you have to manually move it and move out of the way and then restart your combos. Now, as far as the visual presentation is concerned, this is the best Idea Factory and Compile Heart has done on the Vita with the Neptunia franchise. In the Rebirth games, the visual presentation was done very well, but there were a few jagged edges on the character models that were pretty noticeable if you zoomed in on them, and there was some lag when you transformed into HDD. The good thing about Neptunia U is that there is a lot more polish in the system than there was in the Rebirth games. All of the character models are a lot more polished, and it's hard to find even a single jagged edge unless you zoom in really close. They aren't quite on par with the most high-definition PS3 and PS4 games, but this is definitely one of the best-looking cel-shaded games that Vita has to offer. As far as performance, everything is also good. The load times never go above 6 or 7 seconds, and there is no lag or slowdown at all. CompileHard has really done a good job on optimizing this game as best they can. Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed is the series' first dive into the action genre. On the downside, the story lacks the depth the Rebirth games, and the camera can be a hindrance at times. Past this is a fast-paced action game that looks beautiful and will keep the Neptunia fans' attention for a long time. PlayStation Vita Reviews rates Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed an 8 out of 10. If you would like to further this discussion, feel free to in the comments below or access our forum at forum.vitareviews.net.